I'm going to frame today's class by really saying something, but really reading it almost, because I want, it's really important for me it's important for us that you hear this, because this is a really, really cool class today. And we have a special guest. We have 3 special volunteers, but we also have a special guest. And I just feel like it's going to be a really cool class, and I want to frame it for you. So listen. Listen to, just here it is. We're calling this achievement through merit, okay? So, throughout the world, most people in any given population never come to understand militaries. And, in some countries like Israel and South Korea, where, virtually at least half the population. Well, in Israel, women serve in different ways. In South Korea, can serve, but there are countries around the world where at least half the population serves in the military, and that means that military culture is much more known, more widely known among the general civilian population. But military culture is not the civilian culture, and it's a very unique set of human relationships that are invisible to most of us. And it is, militaries are institutions in which it's a very unique, institution for the purpose that's involved in some, it just suffice it to say, military is quite unique, right? So, but the one thing that I've observed throughout my life is that military cultures around the world are built on merit, fundamentally. Achievement through merit, which is the topic of the class today. So you have to earn your place. And the lives of people around you who you're working with are at stake. So if you don't do your job or you can't do your job, the lives of people around you really are at stake. This isn't like working in an Amazon warehouse, where you can have some incompetent people, and it's like, okay, whatever, we'll get by. But this is very different. So achievement through merit, again, the topic of today's class, it really matters. And it's very true of the culture of the military of the United States. And I say that because this is what I've come to know throughout my life, both in my personal experiences and in conversations that I've had. And it's just part of the culture that the U.S. military, or the larger, it prides its, and so, however, you might be thinking, well, that's how the U.S. culture is. Yeah, we pride ourselves on the idea that achievement through merit is the most important thing in the U.S., and maybe, we say like, okay, but that's been changing in recent years. But the fact is that we have a long history of treating certain groups and certain people differently and not allowing them to achieve through merit. So that's one thing. In the United States, that's very much true. And the second thing, we also live with this mantra that connections with other people are really, really important for you moving up the ladder of social mobility. So think about what the fundamental thing that you've learned coming off to life at Penn State. It's not what you know, it's who you know, so make connections. So wait, how does that blend with achievement through merit? And what about achievement through merit in a society in which we have centuries of discrimination against certain groups of people, and we don't allow them to achieve through merit? Okay? Well, so U.S. military, but let me just stick with the U.S. There's no question that sometimes nepotism is involved. And that, especially the higher you go in the ranks, I would postulate that probably, it's really good to know certain people, and sometimes that helps you out. Sometimes, but it's different. It's not like in the civilian world. Okay? That's the first thing. The second thing is the U.S. military is the first institution in the United States that integrated The first institution. The military was far ahead of other institutions in terms of integrating. Okay, so the U.S. military, this achievement through merit, it is really woven into to military culture, right? But it's hidden from view. And so I'm thinking, this is really interesting to have a culture on this, because there's a lot of conversation about this in the U.S., or pardon me, to have a class on this. There's a lot of conversation about it, and I thought, I'm really curious, because I don't talk to a lot of military people about this very specific thing, and I thought, let's have a conversation in class about it, because it's really interesting. Like, how is this true? How true is this in the military? And if so, how do you do it? How do you really do this achievement through merit? How do you make it succeed? How does it happen? Because what can we learn from this, right? Anyway, and the only way to do that, of course, is to talk to people, because I can't have opinions. The rest of us can have thoughts and opinions about it, but if we don't talk to people, then what's the point, right? So with that in mind, our three guests, why don't you come on up, and we also can introduce you can just sit. No, sit on the table, yeah. So let's start with introducing the three of you, and then we will introduce our guests. Go ahead, man. We'll start with you.
I'm Stephon Catchings. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana.
Wait, where are you from? New Orleans?
Yeah.
Wait, do you say New Orleans?
New Orleans.
Oh, New Orleans? You actually put the new in there. And you were in the military. Can you tell us about your...
I was in the United States Marines.
For how many years?
4 years.
Uh-huh. Where were you stationed, or like a little bit?
I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan.
In Okinawa? Oh, okay. All right. So is it Stefan or Steven?
Stephon.
Stefan? Okay.
It sounded like a football intro, like Stephon, BYU.
Yeah.
I'm Cole. I'm Cole Keenan. I was in the U.S. Army. I was in there for 3 years. I deployed to Afghanistan. I saw combat, and I was a paratrooper in the 82nd.
Mm-hmm. In the 82nd?
Yes, that's correct.
82nd Airborne, is that it?
Yes, sir.
All right, okay. And?
I'm Brittany. I'm not in the military, but I was in ROTC, but my dad was in the Air Force, and he was an officer because he graduated from the academy. And there he was a pilot trainer, and liaison officer.
But you're here because you were in ROTC.
Okay, yeah.
And that has value for the conversation that we're going to have today. So you were in for 1 year, right?
Yes.
And then you got out, but you're thinking about going back to officer training school or OT?
Yeah, through OTS. It's more of like a post-grad thing that you can put your name in an application pool, and if they need you or just like want you, then they'll pull you out, and basically that's a way to get like reimbursed for school. But it's traditionally for lawyers, doctors, priests, and sometimes engineers. So I'm the hopefully sometime engineer.
Okay. And so that's one of the reasons that you didn't continue on, is because of just your schooling. You just were going this other path, and schooling is really important for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh. Okay, awesome. Mark, on the stream, you can hear me? Wait, we don't have him. Hang on. How about try it now? No, hang on, we don't have him. Oh, wait, you're muted, Mark. Yeah, unmute. There you go. No, you're still... Hang on. Try again. No, he should be coming up. Just keep talking and we'll... Hang on. You're not... He's not muted at his end, right? What's... Uh-huh. Wait. Hang on. Hang on. Can you hang on 1 second? Can you go back to Zoom, the settings? Can you go to audio?
We can. His is the issue.
What's that? Yeah. Hey, hang on. Mark, if you're on a laptop, maybe we'll just use maybe you don't need the headphones. Maybe it's the headphones that are messing up the audio. Yeah. Yeah, how about that? And unplug the headphones. No, keep going. Keep trying. You're muted now. You're unmuted. Hang on one second. It's Mark. Wait, where's Mark? Oh, hey, can okay. 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 All right, so listen, while we get Mark in here, his audio, I want to ask a couple questions. So given your experience in the military, I'm going to start with you. Given your experience, what do you think people don't know about the institution of the military? Like average people who don't, have family and what do you think they don't know or don't understand about being in the military?
I mean, like, for the most part, I would say, like, until, like, there's operations that you need to do or whatever, for the most part, the military is like a regular 9 to 5.
It's a regular 9 to 5?
For the most part.
No, hang on, keep talking. Yeah? Like, so what does that mean? Like, what do you see?
So, like, usually when you, like, in the morning, you would wake up around 5:30 or whatever, you're PT, physical training for, like, an hour. And then you'll go in and do whatever job you do. And then in between that, you'll go to...
Oh, there we go. Hang on. Yeah, we got him. There you go. Hold on. Have him keep talking.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. All right. All right. Okay, so you're saying it's kind of a regular 9 to 5?
Until, like, you're planning for an operation, that's when it's no longer like a 9 to 5. You just basically do the work until you're finished with the work.
Yeah,
But-
and that work can be 24/7.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Hey, Mark, I'm going to get to you in a second, all right? Hey, Cole, how about you? What would you say? What do people not understand about the military?
Well, the military isn't a monolith. It's very diverse, and there's a lot of subcultures within it. People have this idea that, the entire military is infantry, or we're all like, every soldier is infantry or something like that. And it's not really true. There's a lot of different subcultures and jobs within the military that keep it running like a well-oiled machine. You need infantry, you need support. And people, oftentimes attribute like the infantry lifestyle to everyone, and it's really not the case. There's a lot of diversity within the different subcultures of the military, and saying that, acting like the military is a monolith is probably incorrect, I would say.
Okay, I got you. Brittany, do you have anything to add? Because I have another question.
Yeah, like not fully, other than everyone would know like the camaraderie is really big, but just like experiencing it is kind of not something that I think like a civvy can like comprehend. You know what I mean?
A civvy. A
Yeah,
civilian.
civilian.
You mean like most of us?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, I think we got you now. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. Hey, thanks for being here. Hey, I have your some of your details up on the screen. So you were 27 years in the U.S. Army as a logistics officer. Is
Yes.
that right? And you're now an assistant professor in military leadership.
That's correct.
Yeah, and your son's in the class, and you share the same name. By the way, he doesn't get any extra credit because he's already going to get an A because he has all the points for the class.
We love Mark.
Yeah. All right, so listen, let me ask you a question. First off, thanks for being here. And given your extensive experience in the military, because 3 decades is a long time, and you're still really in a way, because you're still actively involved. So even though you're not in, you're involved. What do you want young people to know about the institution? What do you think people should know about that institution? Yeah.
Well, the Army's the oldest branch of the military. It's been around since 1776. And the Army is here to fight and win our nation's wars.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the best thing that they can learn about the military is that the military is here for our nation. We have a lot of different specialties. Just like the one student said, we're just not infantry. I was logistics. There's lots of opportunities in the Army, and I believe it is provides a vital role in the defense of our nation.
So you were deployed in Iraq, is that right, or Afghanistan?
Yes, I was deployed in Desert Storm, and I was a battalion commander in Iraq.
For how many years were you over there?
I was over there for 2 years.
2 years? And you were how many people were you in charge of as a commander?
I had 900 soldiers.
So 900. All right.
Yes.
That's a lot, right? Is that a lot?
It was a lot. I had a headquarters unit. I had a maintenance unit. I had a laundry and bath unit. I had just logistics focused.
Yeah. So you are, what do you think is, Mark, what do you think is most misunderstood about the military?
I think what's misunderstood is a lot of individuals who are civilians don't appreciate what the soldiers do for our country. Soldiers give up a lot. They deploy. They're asked to do impossible things within limited resources. And I think the one thing that very few people understand is what the families give up. When the leave, they're left behind. They have children. They have everyday problems. And the soldiers who deploy are focused on their mission, but they're also missing their families. And that can be very hard, and it causes a lot of problems. Soldiers, especially when they reintegrate with their families.
Yeah, no kidding. Especially when you're deployed, and I'm going to go back to Cole. So Cole, you were in Afghanistan?
I spent 8 months in Afghanistan.
Yeah. Where in Afghanistan?
4 months at a classified location and 4 months at Bagram Airfield.
At Bagram. And how, what do you think about what Mark just said about like families and like?
Yeah, it was definitely a lot. It was definitely very hard on a lot of the married enlisted and officers. Like, I can't imagine being like you have a wife and kids who are relying on you and you're very connected. Like, yeah, I have a mother and a father, but it's a bit different. Like, I'm a man out in the world. You know, that's different than having, you know, a wife and child who's reliant on you. And being away from them, I can imagine it must be very hard. I probably had an easier time being away from family than most people, but still I miss my loved ones, and I can only imagine that's exacerbated when you have a wife and child.
Yeah, and when you're told to deploy, you deploy. Like, you don't have a choice in that.
Yeah, I agree, but also, like, we generally wanted to deploy. You know, there's this idea floating around, like, especially popular in like Hollywood depictions of the military, where it's like, oh, you know, it's I don't want to have to do this, but I will for my country. It's like, we spent like 2-3 years training for this one thing, and now we finally get the opportunity to do it. Yeah. And we've become elite by training like nonstop. We've been through hell to get to the point that we're at. And yeah, getting the opportunity to do that is actually something that's like pretty sought after. There's also a level of respect you get in the Army, in the military, for deploying, because you have seen that action, you have that experience. You can use that to better teach others.
So let me ask you. So you weren't deployed, right?
Correct, I wasn't.
And what do you think about what he just said? Like, oh man, you kind of wanted to have that. You were in Okinawa, which was. Okay, but go ahead. What do you think about it?
Yeah, everyone that's like, well, most people, I won't say everyone, but most people that's in the military wants to deploy. And like, because I feel like most people that are in the military feel like they haven't truly served until they have deployed. And I know a lot of people don't necessarily want to see combat, but they feel like they haven't truly served until they have seen combat.
Do you feel like that for yourself?
Yes.
Really? Huh, dude. All right. Nothing I can say to that other than, you know, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you a question. Do you have something?
I just want to say that, like, in the infantry specifically, we all want to see combat. Like, it's like part of the culture. Like, you want to like get after it with the boys. That's like, okay. It's like,
Or girl?
my unit was not integrated. I would not know what that's.
All right. Listen, Brittany, is there any, and then I'm going to go back to Mark for a sec. Is there anything that's, what do you think is misunderstood about the military? Did I ask you that question already? Do you have an answer?
I mean, well, I said not like what's misunderstood, but just like the camaraderie of it, I think is like unimaginable from just like someone who's not actually in it. But with misunderstood, I think honestly, I think you mentioned it, just like all the like very niche like jobs available, because there's something for everyone to do like in the military. And a lot of times I think what's interesting is like, for me, like I could have gone to school for engineering like all years and then graduated, went into like the Air Force, and then done nothing on the lines of engineering. Like I could have been like literally anything, and because they'll just train you. And I think that that's like a very interesting aspect to it.
Okay. All right. Hey, that's cool. I like that. Hey, Mark, I want to go back to, did you hear my introduction to the class?
Part of it, sir.
Yeah. What's that?
I heard part of it.
Okay. So this idea, can you go back one slide? That basically, you know, what I was saying was that militaries around the world are really about achievement through merit. And the U.S. military, for sure, I've grown up with that. That's a thing that that's a mantra, man, you all talk about just again and again and again. And that, what comes up when you hear that, you know, as somebody who has achieved a lot in the military yourself over many years, achievement through merit, like what comes up for you?
What I think about when you say that is that anything's possible for anybody in the military. If you do hard work, if you're honest and respect other people, and you try to do your best and achieve the results that people set out for you, and you set out for yourself, you can accomplish anything.
Like what? So can you say more about that? Like, where do you see that in your experience? Like, how do you see that? Where do you see that? What are just some of the ways in which just merit is fundamental?
I think opportunities are endless in the military. Anybody can do whatever they want to do. It doesn't matter your race, your creed, your color, your gender. Everybody has the same opportunity. And if you can go in the military, if you decide to go, there's so much education that you can achieve, and the goals are endless. You can go in just about any field and do whatever you want and travel the world. And you can have a lot of educational opportunities and opportunities really for selfless service, to put yourself.
Sorry to cut you off there. One of the things that I said in that intro is, you know, but all of the U.S. society, Americans like to say this. What you just said, it's come to the United States, like you can be anything you want. You can work, if you work hard, you'll get ahead, you'll do everything. But we have all these different ways in which that's not true. But it really does seem true in the military. Like your words, you're speaking of the military. You're not speaking of just the United States, where we see all sorts of obstacles for all sorts of people. And so the military is a really unique institution in that way.
Yes, sir, it is.
Yeah. And but a lot of people, yeah, Stefan, how about you? Can you weigh in on that? So this idea of achievement through merit. Once you get inside that institution, what do you see? What have you seen?
So I've seen like younger people with like a lower grade basically taking charge over people with higher grades just because the people that were in a higher higher rank, they didn't necessarily know what they were doing to the same capabilities as others. So it doesn't, obviously rank matters in the military, but if you don't know what you're doing in that rank, then someone of a lower rank can fulfill that position.
Can fulfill the position. So it's really merit. Like it's not. It's like here, when you all start graduating from high school, from college, you're gonna show up and you're gonna have your college degree, and your college degree is gonna trump. It puts you in a certain position over people who don't have college degrees, but just having the degree, it doesn't guarantee that you're competent, that you're whatever. And what I'm hearing you say is, you've seen people who have the merit, they've achieved, they're really good, and they excel. It doesn't matter.
Correct.
Yeah. Cole, how about you? What have you seen on this?
It is interesting to note how the military is structured. It's a very masculine, hierarchical structure where the social dynamics, the career dynamics they're all very hierarchical, and it's a competence-based hierarchy. So your status is directly linked to your competence. You're not going to get respect from people below you. It doesn't matter how nice you are, like empathetic or compassionate. It's not really mission critical. It's all about respect. It's all about competence. It's about achieving the win condition, which is very different. It was quite a shock going from like a suburban American high school to Army infantry. The dynamics are very different. Like in high school, it's all about like, you're not allowed to bully, you're not allowed to like be mean to other people. No one cares about that in the Army. Like if you suck, you will find out that you suck from other guys very quickly. It's like
by the way, you're one of the very few people who can pull the mic away from your mouth a little bit.
okay.
Yeah. The other two of you don't listen to that, but he can. So, hey, Mark, what do you think about what Cole just said?
I agree 100%. I've been in units, and I try to have this too. As an Army officer, the private may have the best idea in the world, and I capitalized on that. It doesn't matter what their rank were, but if they had the right idea and it could save lives, especially in combat, I went with their idea and I supported them. I had them come up and brief my staff, and I had them part of the plan to help implement what they were trying to accomplish.
So what Stefan said, then even somebody at a much lower rank, it doesn't matter. Like if they're competent and they're good, because like lives are at stake. This isn't like you're working at Apple or Amazon or whatever, Penn State. Like, you need to know that the people around you are capable of doing their jobs, or this is going to be a big problem. Yeah.
That's absolutely correct.
Uh-huh. Hey, Mark, what do you think about what I said about it's like really a unique, like in the United States, lots of people like to say this achievement through merit about U.S. culture, but we really, you can poke holes in that in lots and lots of places, but in the military it's different. What do you think about that statement?
I agree with you 100%.
Uh-huh.
I know the military is a subculture of American society, but in the military, I think there's greater opportunities. There's more rules, there's more regulation, and I believe it is an institution where discrimination doesn't necessarily happen. It happens in American society more than I think it does in the military. If you're competent, if you can do your job to the best of your ability, and you will be listened to, and people will respect you more because you're there to accomplish the mission, no matter how hard it can be.
So the folks sitting here are young compared to you.
I'm not that old.
Yeah. All right, yeah. All right. Wait, how old are you, bro? 23. How old are you?
I'm 26.
26.
22.
All right. Okay. Hey, Mark.
I'm 63.
63. All right. Well, you're younger than me. So, so this idea of, wait, I had a question for you. Um, Hang on. I lost it. Have you noticed, Mark, this goes to you, Mark. Have you noticed any changes over your long career? Like, do you see any? Because what you're saying right now and what you all are saying is the same thing that I've heard for 40 years. Do you notice any changes?
I noticed a lot with the younger generation. When I came in, orders were barked and you just executed them no matter what. These days, the younger generation is asking why. And it's the leaders to really think about, should we be doing this and should we be doing this today versus letting people go home at normal hours and be with their families.
All right.
Just the
So
culture changed a lot over the years.
yeah, so things have changed. But in this achievement through merit, is it the same as when you started?
I believe it's changed.
Yeah.
I believe today it's more focused on merit and what you can bring to the table versus
So it's even. Go ahead.
versus the past. I don't believe it was that way when
Hey, Mark. So what you're saying is, so really, and this is why I think today's class is so interesting for me. You're saying that merit, it is about merit. It's fundamentally about merit, is what I'm hearing from you.
That's correct.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. Wait. I want to talk about recruitment for a second. We're just going to go. So I want to hear, there's nothing that merit and recruitment coming together. So Brittany, when you were being recruited, what do you think the recruiter was looking for?
Probably just the way that I carried myself. It was like kind of during COVID, so it was like a Zoom interview. And I think he was just like looking for like who I was as a person, and like, do I know who I am as a person? Am I someone who actually can like contribute or can put something forward and not just like spitting out like the honor code that I just memorized right before the interview,
Got you. So are you authentic? Yeah, because achievement through merit, it's going to necessitate you being authentic. You can't just memorize stuff and then and make that happen. So you felt that. They were looking for you being like really worthy of it.
Yeah.
Cole, how about you? What do you think when you were being recruited? What were they looking for?
I didn't really get recruited as much as I went to the recruiter and I'm like, hey, I want to be an airborne ranger. Didn't work out. But I did go infantry, 11 X-ray, but I already knew all of that. He's just like, okay, you fulfill the physical requirements, like good to go. Let's get you through MEPS.
And as you were moving along in the process, as you were, over the years, like what do you think people were looking for in you to achieve? To rise up the ranks.
Like once I was in the military.
Yeah, once you were in. Yeah.
Once you're in, I mean, there's a whole like you go through TRADOC, training and doctrine command, and it's like a whole pipeline. I went through OSIT, airborne, and I failed out of RASP. And then I went to the 82nd. And during that process, they're building you and molding you into someone who can first be a soldier, then be an infantryman, then be a paratrooper, and then be a ranger.
And then all along the way, you know what you have to do in order to get to the next step.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about the Army. The requirements are very clear. It's like, do X, and then you do X, and it's like, okay, you have fulfilled the requirement. Doesn't mean X is easy, but you know where you're going generally.
And everyone has the same thing.
Yeah, we're all on the same page.
Yeah, got you. Huh. Stefan, how about you? When you were were you recruited or did you?
No, I just walked into the office. And
you just
I
walked
didn't
in,
care.
said, "Give me a job. I want to go to Okinawa." Well, how about you? What were they looking for? What do you remember?
So I was saying the Marines, the only thing that honestly mattered was just uphold the standard. and learn how to do your job and do it well, and just be competent in everything you do.
And over the years, was that was that
I mean,
spelled
over
out
the
to you?
years, then obviously when you become more competent, then it starts focusing on like small unit leadership and basically mentoring junior Marines and teaching them everything you know so that they can remain competent or become competent.
And like for you as a black guy in the military, how much did that come into play?
Not at all.
Yeah, you just did. You did your. You felt like I got to do my thing, and I'll do it.
Yeah, in the Marines, I never like experienced racism or anything like that. I never like. I mean, we all would like make jokes and stuff like that, but like it was never like racism or anything like that. So
What do you think we could learn from that in the world, right? Because we don't have that sense. We have a sense that there's the narrative that there's all this racism woven into the larger culture. But like what could we learn from the Marines? Or
I think everything is just taken too personally now.
taken too personally?
Yes.
Yeah. So in other words, just spell it out. Either jump through the hoop and get to where you want to go, or don't jump through the hoop. But either way, like you either do or you don't.
Yes.
And if you don't, then you wait until you figure out how to do that.
Correct.
Yeah. And Cole, you would say the same thing.
Yeah, no one really cared if you were black, Mexican, white. It's all competence based. If you are good at your job, you will be accepted into the group because you help the group. It's like if I can benefit off of your presence in this group and you help us achieve the win condition, you're in. Like you're one of the boys. Yeah, we don't really care. Like as long as you're dialed in with the boys, and you're good with us.
Hey, Mark, what do you think about that? What they're saying?
I agree with everything that they're saying. I think in the military, I was fortunate enough to get an ROTC scholarship, so I went straight in the Army right after college. And in the Army, in the officer corps, and then in enlisted corps too, there's stages that you have to go through, and they encourage schooling, military schooling, civilian schooling, anything that you can do to better yourself, to learn more. You can be more competent, and you can contribute to achieving the mission. It's always stressed to learn more and to achieve more each and every day.
So listen. So what I said to Stefan was that we could, the rest of us, the rest of society, like we could learn a lot from the military. What do we need to learn? Do you think?
Honestly, I think we all need to respect and treat each other with dignity more. I think that's missing in the American culture. It's the golden rule: treat other people like you would want to be treated.
And that implies achievement through merit, right? That if I want achievement through merit for other people, then I got to accept it for myself. If I don't achieve, I don't achieve, and that's what it is, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Hey, when you were going through the ranks, and moving up the ladder, you ended up you retired as a lieutenant colonel. So what were people looking for?
Honestly, competence, dedication, selfless service, living the Army values, being all you can be.
I think about that. Okay, so I'm a professor here, right? And I'm thinking about my students, and I'm thinking about interactions with a lot of students, not all. I mean, but not your son. He's all good. But I think competence, okay, dedication, and responsibility. So, I want to know from the three of you. So, Brittany, I'm going to come back on a different question for you. But the three of you, when you didn't achieve what you wanted to achieve, who'd you blame it on?
Always, this is like true outside of the military. This is like a reality of being a man. You have to take accountability for your actions. And if you're like in the military and you don't take accountability for your own outcomes and your own actions, people are going to identify that, and it's not going to be good for you.
Yeah, this is like what Brittany was saying, right? When the recruiter was talking to you, they're like trying to see what kind of human being you are, right? Don't just spout the words. I need to know fundamentally, are you going to take accountability for your actions, right? Right, because if you don't do that, this is a problem. The system can't function. Yeah.
Yeah, there's also like if you try to blame your own shortcomings and things that like are your fault on other people, like everyone's gonna hate you, like obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also an element of the leader is responsible for the actions of his subordinates, even if he didn't directly do them. So there's like a culture of responsibility in the army and the military at large that is maybe a bit more absent outside of the military.
Mark, you were shaking your head at that. Like,
No, I agree with everything he says.
that's what I mean. You were shaking. You were agreeing with him. Yeah.
Exactly. And as the commander, you're responsible for everything that your unit does or fails to do. And that's a tremendous responsibility.
Because, you know, what I said earlier in my introduction, it's not just like you're the supervisor at an Amazon facility. When you were deployed, you're responsible for the lives of 900 people. Man, this is not like you're responsible for whether they get the packages out on time. You know, so it's like it's serious when you say like, yeah, I got to make sure that everyone's learns how to take responsibility for themselves. Mark, it's 900 people, like the lives of all 900 are at stake. So if they don't pull that off, they don't pull it off.
I tell you what, one of my greatest achievements besides my family was the day that we all came back, and 903 people came back. 903 people left and 903 people came back. And that didn't happen with all the units. And I'm very fortunate, and I'm very grateful that we didn't lose anybody in combat.
That's cool. I want to hold that up. That's cool. That's very cool. And it's big, actually. Yeah. Hey, can you? So we talked about promotion. Do you, Mark? I just want to ask you on the promotion thing. Do you have anything to like? A story or something that could illuminate how you use or how the military uses particular standards to assess candidates? And then I'm going to come to you all. Do you have anything that help illuminate that?
Well, when you go before a promotion board, there's several things that they look at. They take a look at what's called your officer record brief. It's basically one page that says what type of military and civilian schooling you have, what type of jobs that you've had, personal information about yourself. And then there's a picture because they want to make sure that you're fit and you're not overweight. And then the third thing that they look at, they take a look at your records. And for the officers, it's officer evaluation reports and efficiency reports and academic efficiency reports. And they take a look at the jobs that you've had, what your raters and your boss's boss, they call them seniors, what they write about you. And then they score you with other people. And the people with the highest scores, their merit is what gets them promoted.
To me, like, it's just really super clear what you need to do, and you either do it or you don't do it.
That's correct. And if you do it, you won't get promoted.
Stefan, are you in agreement there on that? It's super clear.
Yes, it's super clear. Like even if with the physical standards, even if let's say there's two people and both of you have the same physical standards, but if someone took more like courses for their job to get more advanced, then he would be the one that would get promoted over the other person that took less.
So it's just like a constant. You're constantly able to measure yourself
against your peers. Yes.
Against your peers, huh? It's so interesting because here we are in this world, the academy, right? Where everybody here, you've all been taught that it's not what you know, it's who you know. So it's you can't measure against your peers because you don't know. Like all three of you are graduating at some point. You're going to graduate with a Penn State degree, but you have no idea which one of the people sitting here, which you imagine that you're competing against, but you have no idea who has the uncle, who's the high-ranking corporate officer at Goldman Sachs or wherever it is. It doesn't really matter. You have no idea. Like, it's not an even playing field at all, because some of these people have some really cool connections, and so you'll never compete with them. Whereas in the military, you can. I just want to really emphasize how mind-blowing that is. And Brittany, when you think about going in, right? So joining, because in ROTC you're not part of the military. You're a student, and you don't take that oath. You don't join. But when you think
actually on scholarship, you do have to take the oath. So like technically, I was on like an enlisted member, like in school.
Okay, I got you. All right, but you were able to. Yeah. Okay, what makes you want to go back? Like, what makes you?
I think just because, like, I kind of was my best self when I was in the program, like, kind of self-discipline wise, physically, like, and I did really well. Like, I think it really aligns with having those like clear cut, like, this is what you do if you want to do this or succeed this way. Like, I liked the order that came with it, and like I did well. Like, I was in the top 10% of the National Cadet Corps, which like I got because of my like PT score. I got because of my grades, my involvement, like all those things were just clear cut, and then I was in it.
Well, your PT score is?
I think it was
No, not what your score is. What's it reference?
What's your score?
It's like for like physical training, there's like the PT test, like the fitness test, basically.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. This idea of achievement through merit as a woman, how did you think about that?
Well, I think probably going into the program, because I didn't do like JROTC, so I didn't really know that like aspect or kind of like what to expect, and I thought that it would be a little bit more like I would kind of be like a weaker link, but you aren't. I mean, first, the PT scores are a little like curved differently, not by much, but just like physically I am different than like you guys.
Yeah.
But also just like people would help. Like when we would do like the obstacle courses and I couldn't like jump over the wall because, it's like so tall, like everyone helps you. And so like, I really don't think, like for me, I never struggled like being a girl. And I think also I was lucky because they kind of alleviated some standards as well in terms of your uniform and stuff to kind of aid with the fact that, they don't have to do their hair because they buzz it, so why should I be spending hours on mine? Where like, things like that got like alleviated.
Okay, so the one thing I want to say though is that, and Mark, I don't know what you would say about this, but I'm thinking that the military has changed tremendously over the past 25 years with new technologies being introduced. The person who's flying the drones on the other side of the world doesn't need to be able to carry an 80 pound or what's a rucksack in the Marines, bro? What's it weigh?
I forget the exact number. I think it's like 40 or 50. Yeah.
Well, they don't need to carry that. Like, you know what I mean? There are different roles for lots of different people, and so things change a little bit. So when you just made that comment about, the standards are slightly decreased for you as a woman, the slight decrease is still, there are lots of different positions. There are lots of different things. So it doesn't mean in any way that you're not achieving through merit. There are lots of things that have to happen. So, yeah,
I definitely think that I'm not completely against women in the military, but there are definitely, as you alluded to, some jobs, a lot, especially surrounding in the area of like combat.
Yeah, for sure.
My unit was not integrated. Not only are women like physically weaker and less able to.
On average.
On average, yes. But even once they're in, it's not just the physical limitations that women have. It's even like the social dynamics like that goes on in the Army. My unit was not integrated, but I had to hear about other units about like, the higher ups, they had sex with one of their privates, and it's like that should not be in the infantry. Basically, the enabling of that dynamic is quite bad.
But you do know it always has been, right? Like because men have always been having sex with other men.
Yeah, but we shouldn't pretend that that it's to the same extent.
No, I got you. But really,
Like, if it can be mitigated.
yeah, no, I got you, man. But I just want to point that out. Like,
That's
look,
fair. But
here's the other thing that I want to say though is that, like a buddy of mine who was also like Mark, not at your not a commander, Mark, but he was very involved in Iraq, and he was going out on night raids, and I remember he showed me a photo. The most badass person in his group of 6 people going on these night raids was a woman who was about your size, looked just like you and about your size, man. And he's like, that person right there was, everyone knew that she was the badass and she was going to get it done. And not only that, but when they went into people's houses, she often could talk with women in the house and the guys couldn't talk. She could even go into the house sometimes. And so she got a lot of things done. So the point being, I hear you, there is that, but we really want to understand that level. Bro, we do have a question from, all right, hang on, G, first off, you have a question.
I also have one to ask. So a lot of the people who are not in the military, when they think of military, the first thing they think of is violence and killing. Right, and since we're talking about achievement through merit, a lot of people may connect that more violence might equate to more merit, or condoning of violence might equal to more merit. Could you guys define like what merit in
Just stand right here so Mark can see you. No, stand right here. Come this way. It just stand so he can see you.
Hello.
So come this way, dude. Here, hang on, right there. Okay, there you are.
Yeah.
All right.
Could you guys be able to elaborate on like what exactly merit is in the military for laymen, for us? And
this hippie right here was in the Korean military, so back when his hair was a lot shorter. Yeah. Do you have a thought on that, Stefan? Like, people think of that, but
So in the military, everybody knows that there's like a possibility that when you deploy that you would have to see combat and kill, but I don't think that for most people that's the first thing that's on their mind most of the time.
In the military.
Correct.
Yeah.
But the only thing that I feel like truly goes into merit is just competency again, and just fulfilling your job. And if you go into combat, then just do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, got you. Mark, do you have anything to add to any of that?
I agree with what he just said. I think it's all based on competence and your ability to accomplish your mission. And believe me, from a soldier's point of view, last thing any soldier wants to do is go and kill. We always look for peaceful means in trying to resolve conflict through resolution.
Mm-hmm. So even you say like, hey, I want to deploy, but you don't, it's not like I want to go kill people. I want to have the
as an infantryman, we all wanted to do our job, which involves killing.
All right, I'll just let it go right there, dude. Do you have a question? Okay, Ian from Kansas City says, being raised as a military brat, I feel my parents instilled manners that aren't common in civilian life, okay? Like saying yes, sir, no, sir. Even Mark, when Mark was texting me earlier, the lieutenant colonel texting the professor, he called me sir. It's like, sir, yes, sir. So do you feel that? Let's go with Stefan first. Do you feel like, you like learn a certain manners that a lot of people don't get?
I mean, I don't agree with it personally, because for me, I was easily able to separate my military life from my civilian life. But
do you feel like you brought some of that back with you from the military?
Yes.
So, that like yes sir, no sir kind of.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I think like with my dad, he definitely just instilled a lot of like respect for just like everyone in general, not just like people above you, and just being very like understanding, but also like I don't think he really would ever like get mad or anything if we didn't say like sir, ma'am. But then when I did join ROTC, then that's when I feel like I do that now I don't do that as much anymore on the daily, but like in kind of a professional setting, like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
best
yeah.
believe that I'm gonna
Yeah.
be saying that.
Yeah, you really learn that. I learned, I'm going to talk about this in a couple weeks. I'm going to do a class on it. But there are certain things that I learned in Korean culture that I want to talk about in class that are just really rooted in a kind of respect that's so profound, man. And I really see that. Everyone, because I've worked with the military for many years in different ways, and I'm just really struck by that. Mark, do you have any response to Ian's comment?
I agree with all three of them. I think when you're in the military, you learn respect more, and just by calling people sir and ma'am, it's just out of respect. I've learned to do that more. Even the people at my office, even the cleaning ladies who cleans our offices, I always say good morning, ma'am. How are you doing? And even my students who are majors and I outrank them, I call them sir because they're subject to deployment, and just out of respect.
Yeah, that's big. Like, how many people in here, if you showed up in this classroom after hours and the person that's cleaning the classroom, you would walk in and you would say to them, pass them and say, hello, sir, or hello, ma'am, how are you? Well, I know I know Irvin would. Irvin's the only one I absolutely know would do that, and you would do that. Everybody is sir for you. Yeah, that's like, do we have another question from the street? And G, if you have another question. So David from Ohio says, I served in the Air Force from 92 to 2000. The military was the most socially, racially, and we lost it. Hang on. Culturally diverse environment I've ever been in. It was more merit-based than civilian life. Do you see any flaws in human-created metrics with human-written reviews? Oh my God, that's such a cool question. Are there any, the fact that it's so merit-based, are there any flaws in that? Mark, I'm going to start with you, actually. And then, what are the flaws in having life be so merit-based?
I think the military is merit-based in a lot of ways. If you take a look at readiness, you have to take a look at equipment readiness. You have to take a look at personal readiness. You take a look at PT tests and see if how many people can pass their personal fitness tests. A lot of it is based on metrics, but the metrics help people achieve higher standards, which is related to merit.
Are there any problems with doing that? Do you see any? Do you guys see any problems with doing that? Yeah. Just the problems of being just so merit-based. It's like boom, boom, boom. Do this, then do that, and do this, and do that, and that's how you get ahead.
So I would say, like, there's a lot of the work that's done in the military that, like, people don't realize is, like, it requires a lot of intelligence. And, like, if you're not intelligent, then you wouldn't be able to do that job well. And there's a lot of people that's super intelligent in the military that aren't physically to the same standard as their peers.
Yeah.
But they make up for it by being so competent in their job.
Yeah.
So I feel like when it comes to promotion, that gets overlooked because they aren't at the same physical standards as everyone else, even if they're as competent in their job or more competent than everyone else.
So there could be all sorts of, like, it's complicated to build the right structure and have the right balance. Yeah. Hey, G, do you have another question, by the way?
Yeah. So another thing that I wanted to ask.
Wait, come over here though, so Mark can see you. Just stand right. Yeah, right there. That's good.
Because we're also talking about merits, right? And a lot of the people who probably don't know a lot of the military, but are in school, knows about the ROTC and going into as an officer and the difference between those two. And some people may assume like that automatically places the people in ROTC in a different marital system. And I wanted to ask you guys, like, how much of that is true? Like, how much of that, like, are you automatically placed in a different spot, and how much is it not true? As in, you're gonna, prevail anyways, regardless of if you're enlisted or an officer through ROTC.
Do you have a response to that? Anybody have a response?
So you're specifically asking how do we see merit in regards to officers and enlisted.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
The difference between officers and enlisted is it's not entirely merit-based. It's oftentimes training-based.
Got it. Well, like what training you get.
Yeah.
got it.
Officers generally have gone to college, they've gone to OCS, and they've been specifically trained to lead soldiers. Whereas enlisted, you sort of start at the bottom as enlisted. As an officer, you don't start at the bottom of the military hierarchy in the same way as if you're enlisted. If you're enlisted, you're a private. If you're like a butter bar, like a second lieutenant in the Army, you still have leadership over people, but you've been hopefully trained to be competent in that leadership role. So it's not entirely competence-based. There's an element of training, but hopefully the training correlates enough with the competence that, it all evens out in the end.
Yeah. Hey, go ahead. Yes. Yeah,
So I disagree with that to a certain extent, because at the same time, like, every officer rank will have a enlisted to advise him. Like, for example, with a lieutenant colonel usually has a sergeant major in the Marine Corps, and he basically is the gap between enlisted and officer, and he basically helps mentor everyone while also advising the officer. So I feel like it goes hand in hand.
Got you. So it's like back and forth.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Izzy, can you go to Timmy's question? Hey, yeah, hang on one second. You got it? All right, here we go. From Baghdad commented, I know someone touched on this earlier, but could you talk about the way the military is depicted in movies and how it really is? All right. So listen, we have 2 minutes. Mark, I'm going to give you. So Timmy Kearns is writing in from Baghdad. I know. How is military different from how it's depicted in movies? Can you take a minute and respond to that?
I think that in real life, the Army, from my point of view, is different than it is in the movies. The Army is based off of people's lives and getting the mission done and taking care of soldiers and their families. And I think a lot of the movies are comedy. They're written so that people would want to watch the shows. But I don't think it actually portrays what the military is like in real.
Thanks for that. Cole, do you have a response to that?
Yeah, there's definitely, necessarily for entertainment purposes, it's going to be glorified in a certain way and portrayed in a certain light for mass consumption. The military is it's very mission focused. And
So it's just blown up.
yeah,
But as someone
yeah.
who's been deployed, it's like most of your time you're not dodging
Yeah, no, that's
bullets and
absolutely
stuff.
true. We dodged bullets like once, and that was it.
Once, all right. Okay, Brittany, do you have a quick response to that question?
Just like I would agree that it's like a little less action packed on like the daily. Like obviously you'll like find yourself in like a pickle and all that, but yeah, like from what my dad's told me and stuff, like it's pretty chill, like because he was flying just a cargo plane, so
Yeah, no, I hear that. All right, listen, we are down to our final 2 minutes. So, hey, Mark, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. And you guys, the 3 of you, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Really, really appreciate it. Yep. Thank you.
Can I get a fist bump?
Dude, here we go. Dude, thanks, man.